Good evening, everyone. It's another beautiful day in Napa Valley, and welcome to another one of our virtual tastings. I'm happy to have all of our great neighbors here with us today. We have a few new people joining and a lot of people on Facebook, but please remember to check the bottom of your bar so you can raise your hand. We love to call on people. We love seeing what you're cooking for dinner and fun things like that. We also have a little poll going regarding timing, and you know how it is. If you don't vote, you can't complain. We like everyone to vote. In addition, please make sure you pop up the chat on the side of your screen in order for me to see questions that people have. We're also going to be tasting a couple of vintages of this wine tonight. So when you ask questions or make comments about a wine, please do note the vintage that you're sharing or hopefully enjoying at home. Please make those notes on the side, and I'll try to make sure we get to everyone's question. I know Laura is checking the questions on Facebook Live and adding them into the Zoom chat so that everyone gets to see what else is happening on Facebook. So that's just great. So welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us. We're gonna start out with our winemaker, Michael Scholz, is at the Rutherford State Vineyard again today. Michael's going to show you what a beautiful day it is in Rutherford, Napa Valley, and it's really quite lovely. We got a few clouds coming in, but we don't mind a little rain this time of year. It's a really special day. We're also going to be joined by Brooke Shank, our assistant, our winemaker, and Asael Gonzalez, our assistant winemaker. So got the crew here, and live from the vineyard, Matt Scornetta. We're going to give up all of Matt's bandwidth in order to see the vineyard. So we're not going to be able to necessarily have Matt talk to us today because it's a bit of a challenge out there in the country to get a signal. So Matt's going to give us a little view of Dollarhide. Hi, Matt. And Michael will tell us what's going on there out at the ranch. It's a pretty day. It's starting to get a little cloudy though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so listen, we're looking at across the ranch, way up towards the northwest side of it, across the big lake into the far hill there that you see with the vines on it is parcel 24, and and a bunch of hills around it. So this vineyard is quite unique in the fact that it's in its own little valley. So we're in Napa Valley, but we at the Dollarhide Ranch have our own kind of Dollarhide Valley right here. On those rolling hills, into the foothills and into the high hills and into the mountains you see in front of you here, you're going to see mainly a Cabernet Sauvignon being grown. That's where that's occurring. And on the flatland, on the foreground right there, you'll see probably mainly Sauvignon Blanc. On that shallower, that's lower soil, you see sort of deeper, on the lower elevation, you see deeper soils. We put our Sauvignon Blanc in those. On the hillsides, we see more shallow soils, and we put our Cabernet there because it leads to an outstanding bottle of Cabernet by putting Cabernet on a slightly more stressful soil. And that's what we have going on right there at the ranch. The ranch is a spectacular location. We have about 500 acres of vineyard right there in front of you. You're standing right now on this film. It's from the top of a parcel called 19. 19 is old vine Cabernet. We're very fortunate to have quite a significant amount of old vine Cabernet. And old vines are spectacular because they really do produce wines with just a little more integrity, a little more cellarability. They're just impressive wines. And so to have an old vines is always a phenomenal asset, and you can't plant an old vine, so they're really important to us. 500 acres of vine in this property. The entire property is a total of about 1,532 acres, all sustainably farmed, and of course, the 1,000 odd acres is all leaves itself to natural wildlife and wildlife corridors and what have you, and it's just a magic place to spend a few moments. Yeah.
Wow, it really is quite beautiful out there today, and some great shots of the ranch throughout the season. as Michael said, it is all sustainably farmed, certified Napa Green, not just the vineyard when we talk about Napa Green certified, but the entire property is certified Napa Green. That means the peaches you saw me picking, everything that we do at the ranch is in order to preserve and protect that entire property. So it's pretty darn cool. Napa Green is the most sustainable certification in the wine industry. So we're proud to have both of our properties and the winery certified. So one of the things that I think is really interesting is the analysis that we go through in making a bottle of wine. We looked at the Dollarhide Ranch, and about 85% of the wine in this bottle that we're having tonight comes from that property, and a little bit from our Rutherford property. Of course, 100% estate, like all of our wine. But one of the things that I think is interesting is the work that we do in order to, from the beginning in the vineyard, which we've talked about a little bit, but also the work that goes into just the harvest decision. So I thought it'd be nice to have Asael, our assistant winemaker in the lab, tell us a little bit about the analysis that he does, and the team of interns that we have from around the world who help in both the cellar and in the vineyard in making those decisions.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. We have, as you mentioned, an international team, young guys and girls from different parts of the world come to learn how we make wine. And so what happens for the harvest decision, we have our internal maturity control of the fruit. So we will sample in the ranch per parcel around 10 to 15 clusters that are representative of that parcel. So we'll receive them in the cellar, we will crush them by hand, we will recuperate the juice, which is called must. So we will do analysis here in the lab. We will do 3 basic analyses, which is total acidity, which in grapes is mainly tartaric acid. We will do sugar content. For that, we use this little handheld device, which is very common in the wine industry. It's used heavily through winemaking. So we use that for content of sugar through maturity. And then we do pH as well. So those 3 components are a support for our decision. But the most important one is the winemaker's palate. So we will taste through daily the juices that are obtained. And then what we're looking is a really nice balance of sugars and acidity. And what we want to have is just the best, most flavorful juice in order to have really cool ferments and really good wine at the end. So this sampling, it happens after variation. In red grapes, what happens is that we'll have, variation means is the changing of the color and the actual ripening of the fruit. So we'll go from green berries to red berries. The berries will go bigger quite fast, and a lot of accumulation of sugar will happen in a short time. As well, acidity will drop, and we will just try to capture the best moment to harvest the fruit.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Asael. That's great to know. And so then, of course, from there, once Michael and Brooke and Asael have made that decision on when to pick out in the vineyard, along with Matt and Michael Garcia, they're going to pick the grapes at night when it's really nice and cool, and bring them in. So Brooke, tell us what happens once we've made that decision to pick the grapes and bring them in the middle of the night for you.
Yeah, so once they're harvested at night, as you say, and we bring them into the winery, it goes through our double sorting system, through our optical sorter. So we'll take the clusters and we'll sort the clusters, sort out any leaves or any unripe clusters by hand, and then the clusters will be destemmed and the berries will fall onto a belt. You can see kind of in these photos, there's a white belt, it's going really fast there. The berries fall onto that. There's a cone above the belt that holds a robotic eye, and that eye takes 1,000 photos a second of what the berries going by. At the end of the belt, there is 100 air knives. And those knives work with the computer of the optical sorter. And the winemaking team, we set our parameters for each block. So each block has different colors and shapes of berries, and we will go through before we start running one block through, we will go through and set the perfect berry that we want from that block. We'll tell the computer. Then it'll use the picture that it's taking, the parameters that we've set, and with the air knives, it'll decide whether to accept the berry into the good pile or to reject it into the bad pile. So it's a pretty incredible tool that we can use. It's made our jobs, it's made the quality so much better because we can sort out everything. We can sort out raisins, we can sort out pink berries. Michael Scholz pointed out at Dollarhide Parcel 24, which is a fantastic block of Cabernet on a steep terrace, but we do get a little bit of uneven ripening on that block. So sometimes we'll get a cluster that it has dark berries and the flavors are there, it's ready to harvest. But if you look at maybe sometime in the back of the cluster, there might be a couple pink berries that probably will never ripen just because of the way that block is. So we'll put that cluster through the optical sorter and it'll just take out those pink berries.
That's perfect.
You can actually take a photo of the berries going by. We can blow up that photo and we can see every single little pixel in the grape and decide like we don't want any of that green in there. So it'll just, if it sees that green, it'll knock it out, or if it sees pink, it'll knock it out. So it's a pretty incredible machine. And you know, in 2016, we were running our hand sorting line for all of like our Dollarhide Cab and our Rutherford Cab blends, and we were running all the other grapes that were going into this wine, we were running through the optical sorter. And with the hand sorting line, we could run that with 14 people and we could go about process about a ton an hour that we could be sorting. And with the optical line, we could run it with 6 people and we could do about 4 tons an hour. So the efficiency was amazing, and then that allowed us to be able to bring in all of the blocks at the pace we need to bring them in. If we have a hot harvest, like in 2017, the heat came on kind of fast in 2017, and we needed to bring fruit in pretty quickly. We were able to still sort every single berry using that optical sorter, which is an incredible tool for us.
It's really been quite amazing. And I think that, you know, we brought it on in 2012, which was a very gentle and lovely vintage. We started sorting every wine down to the berry. But I think this wine really benefited the most as a quality jump from that, because we just couldn't hand sort everything fast enough. And then with the upgrades that you've seen to the software, and adding a little hand sorting on the end of the line for the top end wines, it's really quite remarkable and pretty cool to watch. So we hope that you will all be traveling again by harvest time and have an opportunity to come and see the optical sorter in action, because it's pretty darn cool. Or you can watch it on our YouTube or Vimeo channel as well, the full video. So thank you, Brooke, for that. There were a couple questions. One, what do you do with the leftover grapes? Rejected. So
you want me to? So the leftover grapes, we compost all of our stems, and we compost like all the discard or the raisins or pink berries that come out of the optical. So it'll go right back into the soil, which we're pretty proud of.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And then the next question is talking about harvesting at night and why we harvest at night. And I think one of the cool things about our Dollarhide Ranch is it's a high elevation property. And in Napa Valley, that may not be, 4,000 feet, it may just be, 600 to 1,200 feet. But what it means is we're above the fog line. And particularly at Dollarhide, we get very cool at night. We get the benefit of those breezes coming in from the San Pablo Bay, running up the valley and bringing that cold air in. But we don't get the moderating effect. You can see in this picture, the fog is just behind us, and we've got the nice benefit of that cool air has come in. And then at night, we get even a little bit cooler. So at Dollarhide, we get about 10 degrees cooler at night than we do in Rutherford during the harvest season. And that allows us to bring the fruit in really nice and cool and preserve that freshness. And it also is a lot nicer on our employees who are out there picking in the cool hours versus the middle of the day. But Michael, do you want to add some more about the benefits of having those nice cool nights?
Oh yeah, listen, it's quite the Dollarhide Ranch is quite a remarkable location from a temperature point of view, because we can have pretty warm days, which in a Mediterranean climate, that's kind of what you expect to have warm days. Mediterranean climate is to have wet, cold winters and warm, dry summers. And that's what we have in the Napa Valley. In our particular location, our days are also warm, but because the fog line's generally below us, because we're at mountain elevation, we have a big drop in temperature at night. So our diurnal swing is quite dramatic, which is remarkable. And those very, very cold nights, they will help retain acidity in our fruit, and that acidity sort of helps maintain a fresh approach to the wines, helps maintain a cellarability to our wines, and it is really a great advantage to those aspects. But yet, it also slows down your day as well. So your day warms up more gradually in the morning and towards this warm period. But which is also important because that enhances our actual ripening of flavour and tannin structure as we go forward. So there we are, yeah.
Super. Well, I see that you've moved into the cellar, and you're in the newer cellar that we put in 2010, which was another big quality improvement, was putting in these great small open top stainless steel tanks. Why don't you show everybody some of the technology that we've added on those, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we've got a few different things going on here. We have, I'm standing in our small open top cellar, which is a really cool little room. And when I say small open top, we small batch ferment all of our lots. We keep our lots in very small components because when we vinify them, and this is for reds particularly, when we vinify them, we believe we can enhance the quality of what we're going to produce by keeping these lots smaller. And so that's what we do. And with these little, with the pipes you see coming off the front, they are actually attached to a pump. That's some sort of new technology we have going on, where we have automatic pump overs. So what is a pump over? A pump over is taking the juice from the bottom of the tank and pumping it over the top of the skins. So the skins will float during fermentation and form this layer we call the cap. And so we want to take the juice from the bottom and sprinkle it over the top of the cap so the juice filters through the cap. The reason we want to do that is because the colour and the phenolic and tannic structure is all contained within the skins. So we want to extract that from the skins in a gentle fashion and bring it into the juice, which will ferment out to become our wine, of course. And that's an incredibly important process towards making high quality wine. And so the automatic pump overs give us dramatic flexibility of how often we do that, or how often we don't, depending on how that tank is reacting, because we do taste and analyze these tanks as individual characters. Each has their own personality, each has their own approach and type, and we have to monitor them during the harvest. On the front of the tanks, over here, we have our control pad. So this will allow us to control temperature, and that can be a low temperature or a high temperature. So if we want to generate heat in the tank, we can turn that up and adjust it. If we want to cool that ferment down to slow it a little, we can adjust that. This is also the center for control of our automatic pump overs as well that we just discussed. But we don't have to adjust that from here. We can adjust it from our computer. In fact, I can bed at home and adjust the pump overs or the temperatures if I choose to, but I don't.
Awesome. Well, that's really fun to see. So, Michael, everyone has a couple different wines in their glass. We have the 2016 vintage of the Napa Valley Estate Cabernet Sauvignon, as well as the 2017 vintage. And I think Gus just has water in his bowl. But tell us what a little bit about these two vintages and the blend of this wine.
So they're obviously quite similar in type and style, because we're an estate brand. So so our wines are coming from the same plants year in, year out. But of course, there is a vintage date stamp on the front of the bottle. And that's significant because that tells a story about the season. And that's the one thing we don't control. By being a state, we're fortunate that we can control most things that we wish to achieve the production of the best glass of wine that we can, which is what we're trying to do. That's our goal. It's our ultimate goal. But the season is the season. That is Mother Nature. She will do what she chooses, and we will follow along and behave or react as we can. So the date stamp's important on the bottle because it tells a story for that season. The 2016 was quite a terrific season. Well-structured wines, very dark fruit wines. 2017 was a little more, slightly more maybe opulent, but not quite as dark and dense as they are. So the 2016 is a wine. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon and contains about 85% Cabernet. Now, to label a wine Cabernet, you need to have at least 75% Cabernet in that blend, and then you can label it Cabernet. This wine here has 85% 2016. The 2017 is 82% Cabernet. So what's made up for the rest of the wine? Well, we have the other varietals. We have like Malbec, we have Bordeaux, we have Cabernet Franc, and Merlot. So there's purposes to all of those blenders. Every varietal has some strength or another, which we use to enhance our Cabernet, and that's why it's there. So, for example, Malbec is a wine that gives great colour and holds acidity, so it gives life or vibrance or youth to your wine, and sort of pick that up a touch. Petit Bordeaux is a very powerful, muscular wine with big structured tannin, so it'll really build the foundation of your wine. So you use it gently and carefully. Merlot has great centre, has great finesse, great charm and grace, so you help enhance the centre of your palate through that. And Cabernet Franc is just sort of a spice rack. It helps, it adds a dimension, so we do use that in small component. But the wine is a Cabernet Sauvignon. That's what it is, and that's what we're about. And Cabernet is king. Cabernet is a well-structured wine with great entry, great finish, and great width. That's what the wine is. So that's what we have here in the 2016 and 17 Cabernets.
Yeah, I really love the acidity of all of our wines and that freshness, and I feel that comes through in this wine. Sometimes when you think of Cabernet Sauvignon, it can maybe feel like it's something just very heavy and dense, but this has great density to me, but this wonderful freshness, like all of I think our wines exhibit that great freshness and acidity, which I really enjoy. And I think you said something that interests probably a lot of the people joining us today, and that is what the label means and what the vintage date means and what Cabernet Sauvignon means. And that's just a little bit of a passion of mine because the label is really important, and we're held to super strict standards by the government on what we can say and how we track everything that goes on this label. And for the label to say a vintage, 95% of that wine must be from that vintage. For a label to say Cabernet Sauvignon, it needs to be 75% Cabernet Sauvignon. For that label to say Napa Valley, it needs to be 85% from Napa Valley. But to say estate bottled, as ours does on the front, it needs to be 100% from our own vineyards that we're controlling in the same appellation as our winery and be produced by us from beginning to end and grown by us and bottled by us with not a drop of anything else coming in. That is the strictest level of control on this bottle. And when you look on the back label, oh, thank you for that, popping it up on the screen. We're able to say Napa Green Winery and Land on every single bottle because every acre we own is certified Napa Green and the winery is certified Napa Green. And so that is also strictly controlled. But at the bottom, I tell you this because we all go in the store and we look for new things to try. And this title, Grown, Produced, and Bottled By, is the strictest level of control. 100% has to be grown, produced, and bottled by us. And so when you look for a new wine, that's telling you that wine's going to be consistent. It's from the same place, it's the same appellation, it has the highest level of care. And you can go from there to produced and bottled by, which could be grapes that a winery owns and a winery purchases as well. It could be some wine that they bought already made into wine. And then you kind of go down from there to vented and bottled by, cellared and bottled by, or just purely bottled by. And those terms are very specific and have a great level of control. And so the more control you have, the more you can count on consistency in that wine and knowing that the wine is truly from where it said it was. So I think it's really a helpful tool when you're out in the market and looking for something new and exciting to try. Know that that wine comes from a place is really important to make sure that it's consistent. So enough of me and my soapbox on what's on a label, but it's a tool that I find really useful, and I hope you do as well. So we have some super special guests joining us from around the country again this week to talk about the wine and food pairings, because it's dinner time, and I know we inspired some great meals last week, I hope, and hopefully on into the weekend. And one of our first guests is PJ Myers from Michael and Anthony's. He's joining us from Hilton Head, South Carolina. Hi, PJ, how are you?
Hello.
To have you online with us. And you guys, I know, are doing takeout these days during the SIP. And you've got both vintages with you. It looks like you've got spilled a little on the label there, so they must be tasting great. Tell us what you like to pair these wines with.
Well, we are doing takeout at Michael Anthony's here in Hilton Head. We are fortunate that we can not only do takeout food, but we can also sell wine to go. So we are doing that for sure. But with that, you know, I love our Friday night special that we're doing, which is our Ossobuco Milanese. It's a slow braised veal shank, braised all afternoon in red wine, veal stock, veal demi-glace, celery, carrots, onions, and garlic, and just about every Italian herb under the sun. We take that out when it's about fork tender, place that over a simple Parmesan risotto, and I absolutely love it with the 2016 Cabernet, which is what's in my glass. I think the pairing is perfect. I think the jammy fruit, that beautiful expressive note of that bright acid, really kind of creates a gorgeous pairing here. The herbaceousness of the meat, that jammy fruit. So what you have here is a dog chasing its tail. A bite of the food kind of requires a sip of the wine, and you find yourself going around and around and around again in a circular motion to kind of balance out that fruit with that herbaceous note, that kind of savoriness from the Ossobuco itself. And I absolutely love the pairing. I think it's great. Available here at Fridays, at Michael Anthony's every Friday, and we are still doing it. We will continue to do it as long as we possibly can.
Oh, awesome. Well, for those of us who can't come by for the pickup, can you tell us where the recipe is posted so we can start it at our morning Zoom meeting and it'll be done by our 20th Zoom meeting at the end of the day?
You know, that's kind of the fun part of this, is that we're all kind of stuck doing these Zoom meetings all day. And yeah, you can definitely start in the morning. You will find the recipe on our website as well as our Facebook page. And it's a slow braise, so it takes all day. It's a perfect thing to kind of set up in the morning and just wait till the afternoon to enjoy.
Awesome. If you can post that website on the chat, that would be great for everybody joining us. Thank you so much for that. That sounds delicious. So tell us a little bit about other wine regions of the world that you enjoy Cabernet from. We've been talking and contrasting wine regions for the varietal each week. Tell us where else do you like to enjoy other Cabernet from other than Napa Valley?
Well, Michael Anthony's being an Italian restaurant, I absolutely love Tuscany for Cabernet in Italy. I think Tuscany kind of takes the cake. So, I mean, you're looking at, you know, Tuna di San Guido with Sassicaia, kind of the benchmark of super Tuscans. And you kind of move around from there. You know, you can be with Gaia and the Carmaconda project they've just started recently, as well as Antinori and Tignello, another just absolutely fantastic wine. With Italian wines, though, it's a little different. The earth notes, the acid level tends to be a little bit higher. They kind of require food to really enjoy them, where like St. Supéry and Napa Valley, you don't need food, while food always makes that wine better. You can just pull a cork on a Napa Valley Cabernet, like the 16 we're drinking tonight, and just enjoy it. And it's just a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Well, lots of great tips for us there. We also are really excited to have Sherry Underwood joining us from Alaska. Sherry is the general manager at the Petroleum Club in Anchorage and is also a master of food and wine pairing. And unfortunately, your club members can't come in to join right now, but we'd love to hear from you, Sherry, what you like to serve there at the club with the wine.
Well, I'm drinking the 2016 Napa Estate. It's a beautiful wine. It's got that black currant, aniseed, light oak. It's well structured. And it's really a great steak wine. So we paired it with a harissa rubbed ribeye and topped it with a caramelized sweet onion, jalapeno bacon marmalade.
Oh my, wow. You're already getting ready for our Father's Day and Labor Day cab bacon season. I can see that, that bacon happy factor.
Absolutely. We miss our members. I can't wait to have them back in.
Well, I hope some of them were able to join us online today too and enjoy at least seeing the inside of the club and knowing that you're there ready to bring them back with some great pairings.
Absolutely. There are a couple joining us.
Oh, great. So tell us other regions that you love Cabernet Sauvignon from.
Well, there's great cabs all over the world, France, Italy, Washington, but to be honest, I think Napa Valley is home of the best cabs.
Oh, thank you for that. Well, we think that too, but we do enjoy wines from all over the world as well, as we all do. So thank you so much. And then our last but not least guest who we have joining us also from the East Coast from West Virginia, we've got Ron from the Greenbrier. He's the director of wine and fine dining there. And you have been on a particularly long sip stay there at home, Ron. Tell us what's going on there in West Virginia for you.
Well, before today, or back before we closed the Greenbrier down, actually, I was already self-quarantined. I was over in Italy as they were locking down northern Italy, and we got out just in the nick of time, and we've all been healthy, thank goodness. And
yay, we're happy to hear that.
Yeah. And with a few days that I actually got back to work with, we made the decision to close down back in March 19th. And we tried to go option with some of our residents and some of our in-house guests, but our guest counts slumped off enough, as you could imagine. And
right.
The decision was best made to just shut it down.
Yeah, well, we're definitely looking forward to everybody being open soon and being together live. But until then, tell us what your favorite pairings are with this wine.
Absolutely adore this. This Cabernet is fantastic. I think the team there puts together a great bottle. And we pour it all over the resort, especially in the steakhouse where we do a lot. And I think that's kind of the easy thing, the steak. But if I'm going to go with a red meat, I really like it with a New York strip or even a KC strip with a blue cheese crusted top. That's always a really nice option. Blue cheese and Cabernet, kind of like the perfect cheese and red wine pairing, if you will, in my opinion.
Cheese makes me happy.
I know, right? And my very favorite thing to pair this with is actually, there's a blender going. Somebody making a margarita?
We're good.
My favorite thing to pair it with is a smoked Gouda grits with a little bit of Wagyu tips. And what we do is we use the trim from our Wagyu off the tenderloin and raise those up in a little bit of demi-glace and put some porcini mushrooms in there. Those porcini mushrooms are really earthy, and they're kind of it's a dynamic type of mushroom, I think, that provides that umami. And that pairs up really nice with the dark fruits and the super opulent fruit that comes from this Cabernet. Just a great pairing.
Well, that sounds just delicious. And you know, thinking of mushrooms makes me think of our chef. But tell me first, your other regions of the world that you love to drink Cabernet from.
If I could quickly echo, JP mentioned Italy. I think Italian Cabernets are fantastic. I love Tuscany. The area of Maremma is fantastic. You get a cool salinity from there. Great acidity from those wines as well. But one of my favorites and my newer things right now is actually Australian wines, South Australian wines, maybe some Wynns Cabernet from Coonawarra. They're very rich, very opulent, big, huge, robust Cabernets, and you know, Penfolds up from the Barosas and all the other areas that are right around there. Just fantastic wines coming out of Australia right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I think a tip for those of you who love Italian wines and want to learn more about Italian wines and wine in general, I definitely recommend checking out jamessuckling.com. It's worth the membership. Wonderful educational programs that he does. And he really knows everything about Italian wine. He is the master of Italian wines. And that would be my tip for the evening. But you did, you mentioned mushrooms, and Chef Todd is the master of the mushroom. And I'm always so happy when Todd's doing some mushrooms for me with any of our wines. And he really does a great job with them. And I've always loved mushrooms, but Todd has taken mushrooms to a new level for me. So Todd, tell us a little of your tricks with pairing mushrooms and wine, because now they've got me really hungry here.
Well, I've always loved mushrooms. There's something about that earthiness and that umami characteristic, that real savoriness that I think goes well with wines, especially with red wines. They're also pretty versatile when you think about the different ways that you can prepare them. I've done plenty of simple preparations of sauteing, adding garlic and shallots, or adding some of the wine into the dish itself. And I've also taken some and marinated them and put them onto the grill. One thing that I've kind of been playing with lately is to take some of our local mushrooms, some cultivated ones, which are exotic organic mushrooms, which come from a local source here. And I've actually been taking those and seasoning them up, coating them with some nice oil, and spreading that out on basically a baking pan, and then really roasting them over incredibly high heat, so that it's almost like a blister roast. And what ends up happening is the flavors concentrate. You build up this beautiful Maillard brown reaction on the outside, which makes them taste even nuttier and adds a real depth of flavor, but it brings out more of that umami characteristic too. And so I really like to use those, especially when we're pouring a beautiful Cabernet like our 2016, which I have in my glass tonight.
Oh, delicious. And so we had another vegetarian pairing, and not just mushrooms to talk about, but vegetarian pairing that you had suggested with this wine, which is really fun because it is very often that we turn to steak for this. So tell us a little bit about the pairing that you suggested for tonight.
Oh, sure. It is true. Cabernet and steak and beef and burgers, all the comments that everyone's been mentioning, they are really great slam dunks. They go so well together. But I also believe, and I like to explore a bit and reach out into vegetables with red wine as well. A lot of people don't think about that. There's plenty of people who like to eat healthier, whether it's with grains or plant-based diets. And so if you are vegan or vegetarian, you don't shy away from opening a bottle of our Cabernet, especially if you're featuring some really nice vegetables. So what I did was took the base of our recipe that we have posted on our website, and I kind of basically took it as a base guideline, and I went out in the garden today just to take a look and see what kind of spring vegetables were coming out of our garden. Since we're so spoiled and I'm pretty lucky to have such a great source like that right in the back of the winery, I figured why not use that and just change the flavor profiles or the cooking techniques so that they have a stronger flavor and they can stand up to the red wine. And so what I decided to do is take the wild rice recipe that you may have seen and basically dress it with the same kind of dressing. There's a nice savory dressing that has some sage, it has lemon juice, it has Dijon mustard, good olive oil. It also has some red wine vinegar. So there's plenty of acid in there to brighten it up. And it's essentially like a wild rice. It's not a true rice, but it does, when you cook it up, it's about 4 parts of liquid to 1 part of the actual rice, the wild rice. When you cook it up, it pops or it'll crack, almost the grain. And in this case, some of our spring vegetables from the garden. You might see some purple sweet snap peas. I have some purple spring onions that I basically blistered and browned, so they really have that nice caramelization. I do have a little bit of our spring asparagus in there as well as some English peas. There's some spinach in there. There's some Bloomsdale, which is a nice variety that has a nuttiness to it, and it doesn't have as much of that astringent kind of a dry feeling in your mouth with this particular type. So all of this dressed in with the vinaigrette is really nice. It's a nice addition to it. I think it's one of those things I can stand up with the Cabernet Sauvignon. Additional ingredients that you might see that I have back here just to add crunch and texture and a little more complexity. Also depth of flavor. A lot of these will tie in. What you'll see here are some nuts, which go really well. These are roasted and crushed hazelnuts. So nice nuttiness. You also have the nut fats that are in there that add a richness and a mouthfeel. Here are some dried cherries. These are tart dried cherries. That's one of the flavor profiles or characteristics you might pick up on this Cabernet. So you can garnish with some of those. It goes really well with the earthiness of the wild rice. Here's some fried sage. Since there's sage in the actual dressing, I thought I would also do some fried sage because this is one of my favorite garnishes. Not only is it kind of crunch in texture, but the sage itself, when it picks up that fried characteristic, it intensifies the strength of it. And it's a really nice kind of a herbaceous touch to it. Then I also had some kale, the last of our kale, and I thought I would just do some chips. And if I just crack it right over the top, you have some cracklings. You can actually hear it. Crack it right over the top there so you have some crunch and texture. Why not?
And delicious.
Why not go with, in this particular 2016, I do pick up black pepper in there. So I want to make sure that I put a couple grinds of some nice black pepper to kind of emulate that same aroma that you pick up in it. And then if you wanted to make it even more decadent, you can go with some aged cheese. Anytime you have a sharper aged cheese, in this case, milk cheese, this is an 18-month-old aged Gouda cheese. And so I'm just going to grate just a little bit over the top there. A little extra saltiness, the nuttiness that you pick up on there, it just elevates it. So it brings the vegetables up to the level of the wine, almost like balancing out the same flavor profiles.
Oh, delicious. That looks fantastic. And I noticed that you skinned those hazelnuts.
I did. So, roast them, and then once they're roasted, the skins will peel off more easily. And the reason behind that is because a lot of times the skin on the actual nuts will be a little bit on the dry or tannic side to the point where they're astringent and they can kind of dry out your mouth a bit. If you do have tannins in red wines, which almost all do have, it can actually amplify some of that bitterness or astringency. So I would much rather deal with the toasted roasted nuts without the skin and avoid that additional boost of the tannic feeling that you have in the mouth on the finish.
Oh, that looks delicious. I think I'm going to need to make that this weekend. Just really fantastic. Thank you, Todd. And last week when we were all together, I asked you, because it's the time of the week where the pantry is getting kind of light, and we're looking for a few creative things to make. And I saw on Instagram your recommendations had been followed and enjoyed for lunch the next day. So I'm sure without the wine, because you know, if people are working at home, they probably aren't drinking at lunch, but right. But this week, you know, what do you suggest that we might have in the fridge and the pantry that we can turn into something ultra delicious?
Well, somebody had already mentioned my idea. It might have been on the chat, but something as just as simple as a really good cheeseburger would go great with this. This wine is so approachable. It's so well balanced. It can go with something as simple as a burger. Mashes up really well with that. If you happen to have a nice piece of aged cheese, as almost like the Gouda that I have here that I grated over the top, if you just have a nice piece of cheese, like an aged cheese that's got some sharp nuttiness to it, I think that's a great pairing with Cabernet Sauvignon. If you wanted to garnish with some roasted nuts and maybe even some of these dried cranberries, and you have yourself a nice crusty loaf of bread or some crackers from your pantry, why not open up the bottle, enjoy some cheese and all the goodies that go along with it? That's a good dinner.
That sounds delicious. And what if I need to dial out and call for something? Any suggestions on where I can call in Napa Valley for a good pairing tonight?
Oh, let's see. If you were to call out to a takeout for a pickup, maybe down to Napa Sport. Napa Sport, I know, is doing a nice menu where they're making things pretty affordable for all the locals to try to pick up. Their owner, Michael Galen, was on last week with us. He joined us to discuss what's going on at his restaurant on his takeout operation that he has there. So I'm sure he has something on the menu there that would go well with it.
That's a great idea. And I also, I know my husband likes that burger at Avow, and I think they're doing a little takeout. And maybe there's some pizza around too. So a few other excellent options. Well, I want to do a little just personal thing right now, and I hope everyone will join me in raising a glass, because tonight I was supposed to be in Boston, and I was going to take my great friend Jackie out for dinner tonight because she is graduating from Northeastern with magna cum laude in electrical and computer engineering with a minor in marine studies in 4 quick years. And I know she's going to be doing great things. So if we could all give a toast to Jackie, as we're not able to be with her for graduation, and to wish her well in her new career. Congratulations, Jackie. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining me in that little toast. And I'm really looking forward to a few more weeks with all of you. And a couple more weeks, we're going to do Chardonnay next week, and then Dollarhide Cabernet Sauvignon the week after that. And then you're taking over, Todd, and you're going to take over for the Great Sustainable Seafood Tour and Wines as our next 6-week series. So we're going to be learning a lot about seafood and wine pairings from great chefs around the country, and Chef Todd, and great purveyors from around the country who are doing the right thing for our oceans, which we know we can save. So that's pretty exciting. And one last thing, Michael, where are you in that cellar? Michael Scholz, where are you now? Do we have Mr. Scholz online?
Yes, I'm here. I'm right here. I'm right here in the cellar, standing in front of these 2 tiny little concrete tanks, which are pretty cool little tanks. Check these out. So our wine club members have got a brand spanking new wine on the way, which is our cold stone fermented Sauvignon Blanc. Hang on, we got a slight technical issue there for a second, but we got up and away. So our club members have got a brand new wine coming to them, and it's called our cold concrete fermented Sauvignon Blanc. It's really cool, really unique. In fact, we make, as you know, if you're a Saint Supéry fan, we make several Sauvignon Blancs. We've added one to the ship, which is a really interesting wine, really fun wine, really fantastic. From the Dollarhide Ranch, of course. We grow the grapes impeccably, like we try with all of our wines. We bring the fruit in here, we juice them, and once it's in juice, unlike our other Sauvignon Blancs, we bring that juice and we put it into these little concrete tanks, and we ferment them really cold, really slowly, and achieve this new wine. And the concrete fermentation achieves a totally different textural feel. Really interesting wines. Still has true Sauvignon Blanc type and style and feel, and what Saint Supéry produces so well, which is its grapefruit, green lime, citrus approach. But this wine has this real mineral element to it, a real textural feel, and a bit of that sort of wet stone feel, that wet river stone, wet forest river sort of stone feel to as a subtle thread in the background. Super interesting, super incredible wine, and I'm super excited about it. So everyone's going to, all club members are going to receive that. It's on the way right now.
All right, super. So there were just a few hundred cases of that, and that's going to be fun for everybody. It should be shipping out here any day now. So we hope you enjoy that little treat. And the wine we're having tonight, of course, I know this group because I've been with you for a few weeks now, and I know you've been going through it pretty quickly. Don't forget, there is on our website the wine locator where you can locate this wine near you. Pop in your zip code, Saint Supéry Cabernet. It'll show you everyone around you who has this wine, so you can get it very quickly and speedily. And then next week, we're going to taste our oak-free Chardonnay, the 2018 vintage. So we hope you can get your hands on a bottle of that nearby too. It should be distributed well throughout the country. So do check that out online. We can ship to you, but we do encourage you to support your local retailer. And restaurateurs who are offering takeout right now, including cocktails and wines in many locations. So we look forward to seeing you all again next week. And thanks so much for joining us. See you soon. Stay well. Cheers.